children. Got another good video for you. I want to talk about an issue that's never brought up or is never talked about in the mainstream or social media or anything like that. It is talked about amongst other men. This is an issue that we kind of keep to ourselves, keep amongst ourselves. And I want to talk about living life as a divorced dad, how that's changed. And I'll share my story. While I do share and listen to other guys' stories with their experience through divorce and moving on as a divorced dad, experiences vary. Everyone's story is different, but one thing I've learned is the behind the scenes is the same. You know, you're happily married for 10, 15, 20 years. All of a sudden, you get divorced, whether it's mutual or one party initiates it or one party did this, made the other person mad. There are a lot of reasons why people get divorced. And in reality, guys, first marriages have just, I think, last I looked, just about 55% uh, failure rate. And of course, your second marriage is higher than that, third's even higher than that. So if you get married, you're almost guaranteed 50% chance of either making it or not making it. And so, but I'm going to briefly share my experience as a divorced dad, and then I'll kind of add other things in there from other guys that I've talked to. I even have a brother from another mother that actually his divorce went right. You know, even though him and his wife didn't see eye to eye, they got divorced, and their kids did not end up being victims in their divorce. And just kind of briefly touch on their situation. Um, when they got divorced, she didn't want alimony. She didn't want child support. They split custody of the kids 50-50, so there's no exchange of resources from one party to the other. And he's a electrician for the National Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, so he kind of, he works locally, but when the work dries up, he has the opportunity to travel and find work in other locations, which he does pretty frequently, and he makes pretty good money doing that. So I've seen him on social media fly his kids out to wherever he's working at, spend a week or whatever, then sends the kids back to her, and he does this has done this quite often until the kids graduated high school and got on their own 2 feet, and then now they're doing their own things. But I think oftentimes I can kind of compare my situation to his, thinking, God, that'd be nice because when I got divorced, I made a lot of changes in my life. I started enjoying the hobbies that I've always had, but now I could pursue them and enjoy them more often than I did before. So I traveled more. I got on a motorcycle, did more rides. I spent more time at the gun range, and I started working more. Started because when you get divorced, that's your time to rebuild your finances. Because for men, divorce is not only a financial devastation, it's also emotional. And I'll get more into that here in a little bit. And so I've made changes in my life to better my situation in the end. And so there are times that I would love to travel with my kids, but I couldn't afford to do it because I'm not only do I got to pay my bills, but I have to pay her and the kids' bills out where she's at. So it's like I'm supporting two households on one income, and you're stretched kind of thin every month. And so my kids got to miss out on some of the things that I was doing that I wished that I could involve them in. So, anyways, when I got divorced, I was literally forced out of my home on my youngest son's birthday. And I ended up renting a 2 bedroom, 1.5 bath, 2-car garage townhome in town. I used to live outside town, but I moved into town, got this 2 bedroom townhome, which was a nice place. Um, but I remember that first night, I like I said, I was forced out, so I moved out on my son's birthday with the help of her parents, and then my mom and her husband came down to help me. And I was done moving by around that evening. but I had enough time to go back out, and my youngest son had requested, that he wanted some deer steaks for dinner. So I grilled deer steaks on the pit, and we had birthday dinner, and it was it was awkward as hell. I'll tell you guys, you're sitting there with your soon-to-be ex-wife, your soon-to-be in-laws, and my oldest boy was working at the time, so it was my youngest son and a couple of his friends he'd invited over for dinner and sleepover. And so we did all that, and then one of the hardest things I had to do was when I got done with dinner, got done with the birthday celebration, I essentially was heading home to a brand new place. So I went in his room, I gave him a hug, and I jumped in my vehicle, and all I had to do was pull my boat, and then my oldest son got off work and came out, and he helped me move a TV and stuff. So him and I went down to my new place, we unloaded that, and then I had to give him a hug, tell him I loved you, I love you, son. I'm here anytime. Any questions, feel free, reach out to me and all this stuff. And I spent the first night in, oh God, I'd say probably, well, I was married 19 and a half years. So I spent um, the first night alone by myself in 19 and a half years. And so I need to say I didn't get much sleep that night. Woke up the next morning to an essentially empty place filled with, kind of filled with boxes. I did lose, in my divorce, I lost my house, over half my assets and belongings, and access to my children. And so I had really, when I moved out, I forcefully downsized. I mean, when I was packing things up, I was deciding what I was wanting to keep, so part of that was on me with the belongings. I kind of learned pretty quickly I could live with a lot less things, a lot less items around the house. And so this little 900 square foot townhome I was renting fit me almost to a T. But I remember waking up that next morning, and it was a day of unpacking, a day of putting things away, a day of sorting, a day of doing this and doing that. Because I'd moved in 19 and a half, I'd moved, oh, let's see, in 2006 is when I relocated to our location in 2006. So I was in that house for, oh, 14, almost 15, no, a little over 14 years, I believe, if my math is right. And so I hadn't moved, you know, we had roots planted in this house out north of our town, out north of town, and was, good living for a long time. And then all of a sudden now I'm thrust into my own place, waking up to, well, shit, now I got to unpack everything. The reality really hasn't quite set in. So I'm putting things away, breaking boxes back down. I knew renting would be temporary for me, so I saved all my moving boxes. I put them away in some corner of the garage, and got things put away, TV set up, game console set up, computer set up. I had to call and get internet going. I had to call to get utilities going. I had to put a deposit down on utilities, something I've had to do in years. But it took me a little while, and then then life got kind of in the norm. But then one thing that really bothered me the most was I didn't have my kids. I was childless. I went from being a involved dad to being around my kids every time I was home. I mean, I work a full-time career like most of us do. I don't have a non-standard, I don't have a standard work week like 9 to 5 like most you have. I work different hours, different days of the week, holidays. And so, but for the most part, when I was home, I was always around my children. I have two sons, and I was around them all the time when I was home. And to not have that kind of access was pretty hard on me. It was, you wake up, after I got settled into my townhome, I was like, I wake up and like I don't have kids running around here. I don't have them yelling at each other. I don't have them wrestling around on the floor. I don't have them, Dad, can we do this? Dad, can we do that? I wasn't going to kids' functions anymore. I wasn't invited to those things anymore. I was literally like forced out of the life I was living, and I got every other weekend custody of my children, and I didn't know why or how that came to be. I mean, like I said, I woke up being a full-time dad, being the provider, being the protector, being the leader of my household, to now stripped of all of that. I'm stripped of any authority over my children. Ex-wife became, she was default in Nebraska. She was default the custodial parent. I was a non-custodial parent, put on child support. And all the while I was wondering, what did I do wrong to my kids? I never assaulted my kids. I never abused my kids. I never verbally abused them. I never verbally abused or physically abused the wife. I never did things like that. And to be thrust out of your home, and then here's your custody agreement. I had the worst parenting plan that a man can get. The next level below that is supervised visitation. And I'm like, what the fuck did I do wrong? What did I do to my kids? Why are my kids all of a sudden, why are they now victims in this divorce deal? This is between me and her, not between me, her, and the kids. Why are the kids being punished? Why are the kids being punished for, by me having very limited access? I mean, I had 4 days a month, which equates to 48 days a year of total time with your kids. That's not enough time. That's not enough time whatsoever. I mean, I've seen cases where a guy's a school principal, he's a divorced dad, he's around other people's kids 5 days a week, every month, every school year, but yet he's got 4 days a month with his own children. He's trusted around other kids, but he's not trusted around his own. And you're trying to say, well, the math ain't mathing. This doesn't make sense. And I'm around other people's kids more than I was around my own. I go to hangouts and stuff, and I'd hang out with people, and they'd have their kids. So I'm around other people's kids more than I was around my own. I mean, and it's help me make sense of it, guys. Like, it doesn't make sense. How you can be around other people's kids more than you can be around your own. And it's like, so that was tough on me. And it still is. I it bothers me to no end why dads have so limited time. It's like it's like part of the punishment for getting divorced. It's like society blames men, which is true. I mean, I don't deny my fault in my divorce. I got comfortable in my marriage. I got lazy. And then she did the same thing. She got fat. She got lazy. Became disrespectful because of the man I was becoming. And so ultimately that really breaks your marriage, when two people, when she loses genuine burning desire for you and respect for you, that relationship is over. That marriage is done. And of course, as a man, you have to still be on your game. You have to be making money. You have to have muscles. You have to have a little bit of game. You still have to date your wife, which was something I wasn't doing a whole lot of. I did hit the gym probably 5, 6 years before I got divorced, but I wasn't dating my wife as I should. But all the while, she was gaining weight, getting fat. She was becoming a person that I wasn't sexually attracted to anymore. So when you combo all those things up, you have two people that don't love each other as they should as a married couple. There's no intimacy. There's no the sex we was heading toward. I mean, I would say we were all but in a sexless marriage at that point. But the deal is, when two people don't see eye to eye in a marriage, most times the children also suffer. And I know of scenarios where children are, and I was well on my way to being alienated from my kids. When my oldest son graduated high school in 22, he went off and joined the Air Force, which I'm very proud of him for doing that. But my youngest one, when he became the only kid under the roof there at his mom's, he really slid off the deep end. I mean, I was literally I was trying to find answers as trying to get answers as to why this is happening. What's going on? What can I do? And I realized I'm powerless to do anything. Um, yeah, I could fight for my kid, but the ex-wife told me, well, he's not going to want to live with you anyway. And I thought, well, the minute she said that is the stance that I was thinking, well, if I filed a motion to gain more custody, then she would fire back and say, well, he was abusive or he's not safe around his father. Things that women do all the time when their ex-husbands or baby dads are trying to get more custody of their kids. These single mommies will sit there and they sit on the sideline and they watch their ex-husbands or baby daddies bleed themselves dry financially in fighting for more custody. All the while the mom throws in, well, okay, he's making a 10-step progress. He's like, well, he's 10 steps forward now. Now we need to throw in a false domestic violence there. We need to throw in a false abuse allegation on him, and then we'll knock him down 50 steps back in the other way. And so that was what I was worried about. I was like, because I contemplated, I didn't fight for my kids for more time in custody and reduced child support. Matter of fact, she went after me for more child support. And won. I mean, it was, I've got a video on that. You're more than welcome to watch that video on I can't remember what I titled it, but it was my journey with child support review modification is essentially what it is. It's every time I got a piece of mail from the child support office, I would copy it. I would color out names and stuff to protect, her and myself. And then I would show every document I got in the mail in regards to child support modification. And we even had a court date. I sat and I begged for no child support increase and I still got my ass handed to me. I lost. And that was my first direct taste and contact with family court, of being in a family courtroom. And once I went through that, I realized, oh, I don't have a shot in hell of winning any more custody of my kids. And at that point, I've got divorced at 40, yeah, 44 years of age. And so I work in a field that I could retire early. And so I had to make an executive decision. Do I fight for kids? Do I not fight for kids? Do I start rebuilding my finances and my emotional well-being? Or do I fight for my kids? Do I start rebuilding my life? Do I start creating and living the life I want to live moving forward? Because we only have one life to live. It's like, do you want to spend those years? Because for me, it'd been probably about 8 years of fighting on top of paying the monthly child support every month. So I'm looking at going into red pretty quick. And so I made the decision to, well, I guess this is what I got. I'm gonna have to deal with it. I'm gonna have to work with it. And it was tough. I'm not gonna lie, it was tough as fuck living like that. And then once the oldest one moved out and joined the Air Force and was doing his thing, the youngest one fell off the deep end, and I was watching him crash. I was watching him getting involved in alcohol, drugs, careless driving. By age 17, he had his first DUI. By that age too, he dropped out of high school, and I'm like wondering why is this happening? Why is this happening? The endless calls from the attendance office at the school saying, your son has missed more than one period of school. Please call the attendance office to excuse the absence. He'd been in a couple car accidents, was starting to get into running with the law, and I just couldn't wrap my head around why is this happening? And I started doing my research and following other videos from other content creators, and I really learned that my youngest son he was literally suffering at home living with a single mother because the stats on single mothers isn't good. And so when I'm watching this behavior happen, I'm actually seeing it, and I do my research on single mother households. I'm like, holy shit, this is exactly what's happening to my youngest son. He's literally crashing out. Single mothers generally produce high school dropouts, which he did. They usually produce kids, especially I'm talking sons. I'm not talking about daughters. I'm talking just sons here. They typically raise sons that drop out of high school at an early age. They get addicted to drugs and alcohol at an early age. They get in trouble with the law at an early age. Everything I was reading on the single mother statistics when it comes to raising sons, I was literally watching it. I mean, I had front row seats to the shit show every fucking day. Every day, the phone will ring from the ten's office at school. Well, your son so and so has missed more than one period of class so far. Please contact the ten's office to excuse the absence. Why? He's not my primary, not my care most of the time. So I can't call the school and say, oh yeah, this absence excused. I couldn't do it. And it got to a point where I even got a letter from the county attorney saying, or no, it wasn't from the county attorney, it's from the principal of the high school saying, due to your son's attendance record, we may be forced to push this issue to the county attorney, which I believe that is called truancy. And so, oh, great, now we're going to be going to court over attendance, and I'm like, oh man, and it was horrible. I mean, it was terrible, and I reach out to the ex-wife, hey, what's going on out there? Is everything all right? And she'd say, oh yeah, everything's good to go. Everything's good. Do you need any help out there? No. Do you need me to help you get Junior up and going in the morning? Oh, no, no. And then I ask her, hey, why am I getting these calls from the attendance office every day? I said, aren't you getting the same calls? And she's also a teacher within the same district. So I'm thinking, this can't look good on you as a teacher in the same district that your own son can't get to school on time. So I'd ask her, I said, do you need help? I mean, because I was home, I'm like, I'd be more than happy to go out there about 7:15, help you get him up and going, make sure he's out the door on time. Oh no, no, it's good. He's awake when I leave. And I'm like looking around like he's awake. So I asked her, I said, he's awake as in he's awake, he's up, he's dressed, he's ready to go to school when it's time for it. Because he was driving on a school permit, so he was driving himself to and from school. So I'd ask her, so he's awake, like he's up, dressed, teeth brushed, ready to go to school when you leave, or he's under the sheets and you peek in his room and his eyes are open, and then as soon as you leave, he's back out, and I get crickets. So I knew it was the latter. She'd peek in his room. Okay, he's awake, but he's still in bed, but he's awake. Okay, I'm out. I'm going to work. I'm going to go about my day. And then he'd just fall back asleep. So those were things I was dealing with, the many issues. And then, like I said, she'd end up, him and her got in a fight one night, July of 23. She dumped him off in my driveway and left one night. And then the fight was on there between him and I. So those are just some of the issues I faced as a divorced dad. As living as a divorced dad, this is what I was going through for at least, probably the last, since my oldest son left home in 22. So these are things that I've dealt with since like 2022. And we got divorced in 2020. And those 2 years immediately following divorce weren't bad, other than, I had to readjust how I lived my life, how I was spending my short and very limited time with my children, how I was occupying that time to make sure their time with me was good. And like I said, guys, it's tough. I don't wish this on anybody. I think the family court system is very corrupt. It's very, very anti-father, very anti-man. I don't, like I said, on my channel, I try to coach men and help men navigate through these issues. I tell guys, even outside my channel, I have many conversations with many guys at work, friends of mine. We talk about these issues. Like I said, these issues, they're there, but they're not mainstream yet. These are things that guys are talking to each other amongst ourselves about. And I tell you, we got a lot of problem here in the world of man that need to be brought to light because we're seeing. I I talked to uh, like my youngest son when he was still in school, my oldest son. I talked to other people's kids that they're talking about how crappy the girls are in school, how they're into alcohol, into tobacco use, into partying, and I mean these are teenage kids, and the guys are also doing it, but we've almost made a complete 360 on how things were done in the 80s and 90s to compared to what how it's done now. Um, I don't recommend guys getting married in this current social environment. I don't even recommend having children. I one of my greatest fears is not having grandchildren. My kids aren't, they won't get married or they won't find a woman that's suitable enough to marry. And so I've almost kind of ruled out never having grandkids because I don't, I wouldn't wish marriage or anything like that on young men nowadays. When I see a young man or I read the local paper and our local paper has the wedding announcements in them or the engagement announcements. So, you read those and you think, oh man, these people have, or if you know them, oh man, this is that man's second marriage. He's going to have about a 65% failure rate in that second marriage, or a guy's third marriage. Well, now you're looking at about 70, 75. And so it's like, why would you do that to yourself? And I've known guys to commit suicide because of divorce. It's like it's nowadays it's not worth diving into that realm for. It's not worth. You can still have kids. You can still have a family outside of marriage. The only thing you'll have to deal with children in just a long-term relationship is the child support and custody. That's it. When you add that umbrella of marriage on top of everything, you now have the state involved in your affairs. And so now there's three people involved or three parties involved in your marriage. It's you, your wife, and then the state. And the state, I tell you what, they're the strong arm in this contract. They're the silent partner throughout the whole marriage. They don't bother you during your marriage. But when she goes and files that divorce, now all of a sudden the state starts strong arming. Okay, okay, now we gotta divide these assets. We gotta divide this money. We gotta decide, who we're giving the kids to. We're gonna decide who's paying how we're transferring the monthly resources. And usually from man to woman is the resource transfer every month. So I don't recommend this stuff at all for guys. And when I hear of older men, like guys my age and older, getting married, it's like, why? What do you benefit? What would you benefit now that you didn't benefit in your long-term relationship? I don't see any difference there. The only thing you're doing is you're going to allow the state in your home, and that's you don't want that. So guys, you don't want state there. So, anyways, I don't want to ramble on about divorce and all this other bullshit, but that's my experience with being a divorced dad. Like I said, I've shared other stories with guys. I briefly talked about my brother from another mother, his story. His story is pretty good. He got a pretty good deal in divorce. He didn't have to pay alimony, didn't have to pay child support. He had 50 with his ex-wife. He got to do the things with his kids because he didn't have to pay her any money every month. And so he had a pretty good deal. And then there's guys that have a worse deal than I got. There's guys that are getting supervised visitation. There are guys that have been completely alienated from their children. They haven't seen their kids in months, if not years, because of this bullshit. And so I say, guys, if you want to share your story, you can email. I'll have my email in the bottom of the video, and it'll be in the description of the video. You can email me your story. I'll keep you anonymous. The only thing I'll probably indicate is the state you're from. I'm not going to say, oh, you're from Bangor, Maine. You say, oh, got a guy here from Maine. He's divorced at 45. Here's his story. And I'll read your story. We'll talk about it. Hopefully we can have a discussion in the comments about it. And like I said, hopefully we can bring these men's issues to light to where as a society, we need to look at how we're treating men during and after divorce, especially when it comes to child custody. Yeah, there's 6 or 7 states in the United States right now that have went over to 50-50 custody, which I think is awesome. Where we're heading in the right direction. Um, will we eventually get there? I think so. Um, the work that Mark Ludwig is doing across the United States has been very impactful when it comes to family courts and how we are treating people during divorce and child custody hearings. I think that's making uh, good strides in the right direction. I'm fairly confident we'll get there. I don't expect to get there tomorrow, next week, or next month, or next year, but I think we will eventually get there. And so I think we're heading in the right direction, but it's really it's way late in starting. This stuff should have started probably 20, 30 years ago when the no-fault divorce is really taken off and women are just divorcing their men, keeping them away from their kids, taking their assets from them, and having them essentially the government has replaced the husband in the home is what's happened over the last handful of decades. And so we're seeing the fallout of all this stuff that's changed over the years. And so, like I said, that's it's a mess, guys. It's a mess out there. But I'm going to leave it at that. Please share your story. I mean, I'll be happy to uh, read it out on, put it out there for everyone else to see. And I think these issues need to be heard. I think men need to be sharing their stories with not with just each other, but we need to be bringing these issues to light to our community leaders, to our state leaders. Hopefully, we can get change going much quicker or get it more widespread. So with that being said, guys, I'm going to leave it at that. Please leave a comment, like, and subscribe to the channel. I have been doing my videos have been kind of very sporadic, to say the least. I've been busy. It's spring and summer are my busy times. I've been out. I bought a new motorcycle. If you guys haven't seen that already on my channel, I bought a 2023 Street Glide. I've done a couple of videos where I've done some modifications. I've done a few oil changes. Um, uh, Went down to Florida for a week back in June with my girlfriend and my brother and his wife. We went down, spent 7 days in Cortez down there, had a good time. Family trip. It was great. Came back. I've been riding on a motorcycle. I've been out fishing. Um, been out on the boat. So I mean, it's been busy times, guys. So I haven't been cranking out the videos like I would expect myself to. But in reality, I'd rather be doing those things than doing this. I like doing the videos. Don't get me wrong. I do like doing that. But the funner things take precedence. So with that being said, guys, you have a good rest of your day and toodles.